All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew Dowd. I'm the Public Information Officer with the Ventura County Fire Department. Thank you all very much for being here this morning. We're here today to discuss the determination of cause of the mountain fire. We'll have two speakers today, Ventura County Fire Chief Dustin Gardner and Ventura County District Attorney Eric Nasarenko. Chief Gardner and District Attorney Nasarenko will each make presentations, and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. I would ask you to please hold your questions until the Q&A session at the end of the press conference. I'd like to begin by welcoming Fire Chief Dustin Gardner.
Andrew, thank you. And good morning, everybody. For the record, Dustin Gardner. I'm your County Fire Chief. So we're going to start off this presentation today, and we're going to tell a story. We're going to walk through the Balcom Fire and into the mountain fire. I'll start with the very beginning. Our arson investigators have determined the most likely cause of the mountain fire was the extreme winds dislodging a pocket of covered hot tire debris from an earlier fire in the Balcom-Bixby area. The mountain fire was absolutely devastating to our community. To everyone affected by the fire, you have our continued support and compassion. Neighbors to all of us here in Ventura County, you lost homes, you lost possessions, including irreplaceable photos and keepsakes. Others were forced to flee, not knowing whether they would have homes to come back to. It was a heartbreaking and emotional scar that will last longer for all of us than it takes to rebuild anything. I also want to remember and acknowledge and thank all the firefighters, first responders, law enforcement officers, emergency service workers that responded to the mountain fire. Remember, on that first day, we had 11,000 homes impacted by fire. We had thousands of people that had to be evacuated, and we didn't lose a single life. While the mountain fire was absolutely tragic, the loss was tragic to our communities, to many of our own members. We didn't lose any lives, and I am so thankful for that. And a big reason is because of the unified and extraordinary response we had from our firefighters and our law enforcement agencies. And with that, now I'm going to walk you through the Balcom fire and what happened on that October day. So first, remember the Balcom fire started on October the 30th, 2024 at 2:54 in the afternoon. October 30th was a normal October day. It was 70 degrees. It was partly cloudy. There were light winds, and relative humidities were high. We had a property owner contract with a tractor company to do brush clearing. As you can see the tractor here in the middle of the field. As they were clearing the brush in the Balcom Canyon area, the tractor operator noticed a fire in the engine compartment and notified 911. Our firefighters responded to the fire at 2:54 in the afternoon and held the Balcom fire at 1.8 acres of grass and light coastal sage. On this fire, our firefighters responded, more than 100 of them responded. We put hand line, we put water line, we put dozer line, and we put retardant line around a 1.8 acre fire. Your firefighters gridded it. More than 100 firefighters walked in a line and gridded that fire after the fire was out with handheld infrared technology called ProBuys, ungloved hands, hand tools, and hose lines. They gridded 100% of that fire in the black and also out into the green. So remember, 1.8 acres. It had wet line around it. It had hand line around it. It had dozer line around it. It had retardant line around it. And your firefighters, more than 100 of them, gridded that fire with hand tools, infrared technology, and ungloved hands feeling for heat. Our incident commanders worked that fire until they believed it was cool and believed it was controlled and handed it off to our arson investigators. Our arson investigators initiated their investigation into the fire that afternoon and held it until the next day. They did not close their investigation that first day, and this is an important piece. They came back out on October the 31st. When our investigators came out, this is a picture, this is a short video of the mop-up on the 30th, just to see the conditions. There's no wind, there's no clouds. You've got firefighters across the whole piece, and that is the fuel we were dealing with. It's light grass and coastal sage. The next day on the 31st, our arson investigators came back out to finish their investigation. As part of their investigations, we brought a captain out from our training division that flew a UAV, flew a drone over the fire with two intents. One was to map it, and one was to fly it with an IR infrared technology scan. While he flew the fire, he found 2 points of heat that were of concern. One you'll see, you can't see my little laser, but if you can see, one is here, which if you transcribe that is here, right on a dozer line, and one is here, a set of them around the tractor, which you saw the tractor in the earlier pictures. When they looked at that, with the conditions they had, with the fire intensity they had, with the suppression efforts that were taken, the fire in the cat pile or the dozer line on the edge of the perimeter was a concern. Our arson investigators took hand tools out of their vehicle, they dug it out and suppressed that heat to where they felt it was comfortable. They then had a consultation with our command staff. We looked at the weather, we looked at the fuel conditions, we looked at the fire conditions, we looked at the suppression efforts that we took with hand line, hose line, dozer line, retardant line, and an IR flight around it showing no heat on the perimeter, and we closed the fire. We closed the fire and handed the fire back over to the property owner to have their investigators, their insurance investigator and adjusters come out to take a look at the tractor. As you can see from this picture, and we just wanted to give you this as an example or a picture of what the suppression efforts look like. That's the tractor in the middle. From the black of the tractor to the closest unburned fuel, and again, that was stubble that the tractor operator had already ground up, was 203 feet. So that tractor was sitting in the middle of 203 feet. So a question that's going to be asked and has been asked, if we saw heat in that tractor on the second day, why didn't we address it? Heat in a burnt up tractor, a burnt up carcass of steel, thousands of pounds of steel, the second day, that's not alarming. That's not out of the ordinary, and that's nothing that wouldn't be expected. The IR drone flew over it and thought the heat to be about 300 degrees. As an example, if you look at a tailpipe right now, one of these cars pulling in the parking lot, it would be more than 500 degrees. So it was a carcass of steel that had been burnt up, was in the middle of a fire, was more than 200 feet away from the green, and it was hot. And we knew it was hot, and it wasn't alarming to us that it was hot. We expected that. We dealt with the fire on the perimeter, and we looked at the suppression efforts, the fuel type, the fire conditions, the fact that the weather was that day, and let's remember this is the 31st now. We're making decisions in real time on the 31st. We woke up in the morning on the 31st, and the weather was in the high 40s in Somas. There was dew on the windshields. There was clouds overhead, and we had rain in the forecast. There was actually an 8% chance of rain that day. So that's where our commanders were making decisions. They were making decisions based on the fuel, the fire, and the terrain they were in that day. Our firefighters respond to more than 100 brush fires a year. They respond to more than 1,000 fires a year. They respond to more than 80,000 calls for service a year. And they make decisions based on what they have at the moment, based on their experience, their education, their knowledge, their wisdom. They make experience and judgment on those decisions. Those decisions led us to closing this incident. Now, following days, on the 31st, the property owners came out, and all of this is now reported through our arson investigators following the mountain fire, and we have confirmation from the property owners that they came out on the 31st and reported seeing no smoke and no fire. On the 1st, the property owners came back out with their insurance company and reported seeing no smoke and no fire. On the 2nd, we had measurable rain in the area. On the 3rd, we had individuals out, property owners and private citizens out in the area and reported seeing no fire, no heat. On the 4th, now we're moving forward. Now the National Weather Service is now issuing a red flag warning. On the 5th, they upgrade that warning to a particular dangerous situation, and the Ventura County Fire Department went into a Plan 2 staffing. We had 100% of our normal staffing. We brought in 10 extra engines, all of our hand crews, all of our bulldozers, all of our helicopters, and an entire command team to prepare for the weather event on the 6th. And then on the morning of the 6th, the mountain fire started. And this is the difference in weather and conditions on the morning of the 6th. little different. So here's the change, and here's where we're at in our weather. The first picture, that's October the 31st. That's the conditions that our commanders were faced with on the morning of 31st. A 1.8 acre fire in grass and light coastal sage, a tractor carcass that had been burnt to the ground. The black around the tires is rubber. That's what you're seeing there. That's black rubber that had been burnt. And you're all going to get a copy of this. So you'll have pictures. We'll have them available to you. The picture on the right is a couple hours after the fire started, the Falcon fire started. And if you notice, all the rubber is gone. All of it is blown away. And 2 hours after the fire started, this is what our investigators found. So our investigators believe it is more likely than not, after an extensive investigation with CAL FIRE and looking at every other possible cause that could have caused the Falcon fire, they believe it's more likely than not that that hot rubber that entombed those tires was blown away when the wind started on the 6th of November, blew the rubber away, and found an ember after 7 days of sitting there with no smoke, with no reported fire, with no concern to anybody that had seen it in the previous 7 days, believed it blew that rubber away, spotted over the 200 feet of containment we had in place, and started the mountain fire. So a couple questions have been asked continually through this. Why is it taking so long to get this report out? And that's a valid question, and it's something that should be explained. Our arson teams and CAL FIRE arson teams have to work through every possible cause unless there's an eyewitness stating they started the fire or they saw who started the fire, and it's a known entity. We have to work through every possible cause, from lightning to mechanical to electrical to recent human activity. They have to work through everything. And our teams worked through all of those individual pieces and eliminated all of them except for the probability or possibility that fire could have been entombed underneath the rubber of those tractor tires. And it sat for 7 days. And when the wind came up, it blew out. Another question is, what are we going to do different, or what are we going to learn from this? And here's where transparency and accountability and trust with our public is absolutely paramount to me and the members of your fire department. We are members of your community. We live in this community with you. We want our public to trust us. I can assure you that the fire officers, that the firefighters that work for this fire department are some of the absolute best in the business. They are world class at what they do. They base their decisions on science, they base it on facts, and they base it on decades of experience. And everything they did on the Falcon fire was appropriate. They went above and beyond. They had hand line, dozer line, retardant line, and 100% mop up. We had an extraordinary wind event happen on the 6th that blew that rubber out of the way and started the mountain fire. And the mountain fire was absolutely terrible. It impacted all of us. We had members lose their homes. We had members almost lose family members. So we will learn from this because we are a high-performing agency that is always looking for ways to do better. So we are going to implement a couple of new processes. We're going to work with our regional partners, and we're going to implement a post-fire reconnaissance policy or program. Because we didn't go back out to this fire days afterwards because we didn't think we needed to, right? It was cool, it was wet, we had forecasted rain. We weren't expecting this fire to blow out of here, but we're going to implement a program where we utilize drones and we utilize technology to fly and recon fires. I don't know for how many days. I don't even know if we would have flown this one 7 days later following wetting rain. But we're going to work with our partners and develop a practice for that. We're also going to look at our mop-up policy and our mop-up procedures that we have outlined in our wildfire doctrine, and we're going to work with our partners in California, and we're going to create a best practice utilizing technology and utilizing all the tools available to assure we're mopping up fires properly. And then last, we're going to have an outside third-party independent agency come in and investigate the Falcon fire. And I'm going to let them to look at every angle of the Falcon fire, look at our response, and tell us if we could have or should have done something different. and then I will report that out to my board of directors. And with that, I would like to close for now and hand it over to our district attorney, Eric Nasarenko.
Thank you very much, Chief Gardner, for your forthcoming and thorough presentation. Good morning. The Ventura County District Attorney's Office is announcing today the closure of the criminal review into the Balcom and Mountain fires. After an extensive and detailed analysis, we have determined that no criminal charges will be filed. In April, Ventura County prosecutors received a comprehensive investigation from the Ventura County Fire Department and CAL FIRE. This investigation consisted of 360 gigabytes of data, 2,800 electronic files, and several thousand pages of reports. A team of senior prosecutors assembled to carefully and thoroughly analyze this material to determine whether or not criminal charges were warranted. Their focus, the actions and mindset of the tractor driver before, during, and after the Balcom fire. Here is what they learned. The tractor driver had extensive experience clearing vegetation in Ventura County and had worked for his farm labor company for 24 years. On the day of the fire, he was nearing completion on a 10-acre job in Balcom Canyon using a 2023 tractor with an attached shredder for brush clearance purposes. By his own account, the tractor was functioning properly, and he did not notice any mechanical or electrical issues while operating it. When the fire erupted near the tractor's engine, he drove that tractor to an area he had already cleared. He called for help, and he remained on scene to assist first responders. Thereafter, he cooperated with arson investigators. The evidence ultimately supported one conclusion. The tractor driver acted neither maliciously nor recklessly. Specifically, there's no evidence that the tractor driver knew in advance that what he was driving would catch fire, and yet he ignored that risk and drove the tractor anyway. And there is no evidence that he drove the tractor with the intention of starting a fire or that he was aware that one could occur. Accordingly, on the basis of these facts and the evidence reviewed, there is no ability to charge him with a crime. The Ventura County District Attorney's Office has closed its criminal review into the Balcom and Mountain fires and wishes to thank the Ventura County Fire Department and CAL FIRE. We are grateful for your investigation, for your professionalism, and for your assistance. And then lastly, I want to end with the following. As prosecutors, we have a specific task. We focus on the question of criminal liability, but we recognize that no legal finding can undo the loss that so many here in Ventura County have suffered as a result of the Mountain Fire. Our hearts go out to our residents whose orchards, homes, properties, and ranches were either damaged or destroyed, and their sense of security forever altered. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, District Attorney Nasarenko. We will now be glad to take your questions. I will moderate the Q&A session, and I'll invite Chief Gardner and District Attorney Nasarenko to help provide answers. Start with any questions.
question was, is there a date or anticipated date that the independent evaluation will be completed? And no, we haven't, because the report wasn't complete and because we hadn't given this out, I haven't hired a company to do it yet because I didn't want to get the cart in front of the horse and go out of process. We have a great partner in the DA and want to make sure we follow and adhere and respect that process. So we will either have CAL FIRE do it as our state fire department, or we'll hire, there are very few agencies or companies in existence that do that kind of work. So they will come in and get it done, and then we'll make it public.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Fire debris on a whole new piece of metal, that's something your agency hasn't dealt with before. I mean, how do you guys handle this differently than other fires that you've found on first?
That's a good question. Can everybody hear the questions? Do I need to repeat them? Okay. No, tires are normal. Tires, burnt up carcasses are normal of vehicles, burnt up tractors, debris in and around barns, outbuildings, sheds, houses. That's all normal debris. As you saw from the pictures, and you'll see when you look at it, the tires were melted down and encapsulated. If there's a threat, or we believe there's a threat, they'll remain on fire traditionally for a long time because they're a hydrocarbon. Those, as you saw in the pictures, those fires, they were out. They were cold, they were powdery. We have dealt with it. We deal with it extensively on fires, and during our normal mop-up and overhaul procedures, the threat is dealt with to a point where we feel the perimeter is safe. And then we close the fire, hand the property back over to the property owner, and it becomes the responsibility of the property owner to remove vehicles, remove tractors, remove debris, however they want to do it. But we don't remove things for property owners unless we feel it's a risk to public safety or public health.
Thank you. Thank you.
No. No.
Thank you. Yes, your question.
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? So hindsight being 2020, I wish the tractor had never been there and the Balcom fire had never started. The reality of it is that the men and women in the fire service deal with each individual incident as they come. And the fact was, we had the Balcom fire. We had the Balcom fire under 70-degree weather with mild wind, with relatively normal humidity, with cloudy skies, and with rain in the forecast. Our firefighters responded to and mitigated that emergency based on those conditions, right? And based on those conditions, everything they did was appropriate. If we had hindsight, we could what if and judge things differently, but I'm going to have to rely on the fact that my men and women respond 80,000 times a year and mitigate emergencies based on the situation they are facing with the tools they have in their hand, and they handle it to the best of their ability. That fire was suppressed on the 30th to the best of their ability and to industry standards.
So, thank you.
It was the extreme wind and the extreme heat that caused that overpressure spark and the fire to revolve, and that's what created the storm.
So that's a great question, and it is one that unfortunately we can't put a definitive answer to, and that's why we're saying it is more likely than not the cause of the mountain fire came from that tractor, because you can see the pictures on the 31st where that tractor fire and debris was still there. Then when our arson investigation team returned, or were there for the mountain fire, an hour and a half later, they had the video that you saw where all the rubber was gone. And that's from the wind blowing that all the way. So we had sustained, I believe north of 50 mile an hour sustained winds with gusts to 70, 80 miles an hour that came in and blew all that away. And the best we can figure is something stayed in tune underneath, whether underneath the tractor or underneath that rubber, stayed in tune for 7 days, which in light grass, as you study fuels and fire tech and fire science, heat will stay contained in heavy timber for that long. No, not that we're aware of. All we can figure, our best case scenario is something was entombed in that plastic underneath that tractor as the wind came in and dislodged all that rubber, put oxygen back on it, and got something going. Very safe.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
That's a really good question. Thank you. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for multiple reasons. One is I have extraordinary pride in this agency. I believe the men and the women that work for Ventura County Fire are some of the finest firefighters in the business. We live in these communities. Our families live in these communities. Our friends live in these communities, and we treat, respond to, and put our arms around these communities like their family. So we had family loss the day of the mountain fire. So we, of course, look at everything. We look at our simple EMS calls every time to see what we could do better. We look at every fire to see what we can do better. So I, of course, have asked those questions. Are there things we could do better? And those are tough questions to ask the men and women that put their lives on the line to protect these communities. Is there things we could have done better, should have done different? So yeah, it's extremely difficult, and it is emotional because these are our communities. These are our people. These are our families. The trust and respect of the community is the utmost importance for me, and the utmost importance for my men and women that respond every day and deal with these communities, and we don't want that to be broken. And that's why we're trying to be upfront and transparent and accountable to you, give you this whole story and let you know we're going to look for ways to do things even better in the future.
I think we probably have time for one more question if there are any other questions.
Well, I hadn't considered asking anybody for help. I was going to do it myself. So we're fortunate in Southern California in that we are part of a very tight fire community. I sit as the vice chair of the California Fire Stoke Association, which is an association of all municipal, federal, and state fire agencies throughout the state and all our federal land management agencies. I have a built-in extensive group of peers that I'll run things like this by, and I planned on asking my trusted peers. We've had things like this have been done in the past, following the Woolsey fire, following Thomas fire, following, well, the Palisades and Eaton fire. There are companies out there, so I'll ask for recommendations. I would prefer for CAL FIRE to do it as our state fire agency, but we're working out whether they can or not with the state attorney general. Because they're partners. And I want it to be fully, I want the community to have full and complete trust and transparency in the report.
Thank you. Thank you very much again for attending our press conference today. Thank you, Chief Gardner. Thank you, District Attorney Nasarenko. For those of you joining us from the press, inside of your press kits, we also provided you a QR code, a scannable QR code. If you follow that scannable QR code, it'll take you to a Google Drive where we have all of the photographs and video that were provided here in the presentation available for you to share and help tell the story. So again, I'd like to thank you all for being here, and thank you for your time.